Hello again, this is G. Michael Vasey with another episode of the Magical World of G. Michael Vasey podcast. And today I'm really excited to be talking to one of the foremost vocal talents in the paranormal and supernatural stories field. The host of Weird Darkness and a host of other podcasts, videos and books, Darren Marlar. Darren's voice is instantly recognizable, and I'm so pleased to be talking with him. We begin as usual, asking how Darren got interested in the paranormal in the first place.
People ask me that question all the time, and it's really hard to answer because I'm not exactly sure. It's always been there. Well, probably because I was born November 1st. So it's the day after Halloween. And my grandpa on my mom's side, his birthday was Halloween. So we were always celebrating this joyous occasion with all of this dark imagery around us. And so I think maybe just at the beginning, I associated skeletons and werewolves and witches and ghosts and everything with happiness, which is a really odd way to look at the world, but that's the way it worked. So I think that's where it started. And I really don't remember much past that. I do remember one Halloween, and I don't know if this actually got me into the paranormal or not, but I just love the memory. I was probably 5 years old, something like that, and my dad was taking me out trick-or-treating, and I was wearing a Mickey Mouse costume because, boy, that's scary. And there was a house at the bottom of our street. We were in a cul-de-sac, and the house really made itself up really great. It really looked like a haunted house, and they even had a guy dressed as a werewolf running around scaring the kids, running from behind the house to scare them and then running away. And I was too scared to approach the house. I couldn't do it. Nowadays, the werewolf is my favorite cryptid, but back then I was terrified. And my dad said, "Don't worry about it. All you need to do, go up to the werewolf and growl, and he'll be scared of you." Because my dad knew that it was just people having fun and that they'd play along, but I didn't know that as a kid. I'm dressed as Mickey Mouse and I'm gonna scare a werewolf. Are you insane? So I did. I went there and went or whatever I did, and he ran away. And that's like my favorite memory now. Suddenly, then I loved everything creepy because I knew that it wasn't dangerous. I knew that it was just something fun. And so I think that's probably that combined with the birthday thing. I think it's probably where I really liked the dark stuff and the paranormal and stuff like that. Later in elementary school, I remember reading. In fact, we used this as a section in one of your books that went the introduction about how I was in a school library, and I pulled out a book about the paranormal, weird things. And I don't remember anything in that book except I remember reading about the Mothman. And the imagery that the author wrote, I can't remember the name of the book, the author or anything, but the imagery that he wrote made me feel like I was there. The Mothman coming down onto the car, scraping across the roof of the car, scaring the tar out of the young couple who had just been necking, minutes later. It was so vivid in my mind. And so that kind of stuff, I think, got me interested in telling the stories. Even that young, I just loved the idea of being able to immerse myself in something like that. I've never been into the movies all that much, or even other podcasts that do it, but I really enjoy, and not just reading for myself, but actually verbalizing the stories like those books that I've narrated for you. I absolutely love doing that. I don't know why I enjoy telling the stories more than reading them, but I do. I think maybe because it gives me an opportunity to kind of play those characters.
Yeah.
And I just love it. So I really can't explain though, other than that, why I'm into the paranormal. I shouldn't be, because people see me as a born again Christian. You're not supposed to be in that. You can't do that. That's just give me a break. Give me a break. Supernatural, paranormal, they go hand in hand. So yeah, a lot of people even say that I shouldn't be into it, but I don't care. I just have too much fun with it.
Well, you do a lot of voiceover that's not paranormal, and my daughter's now approaching 15, but a few years ago, she was obviously familiar with your voice from reading my books and also from the Weird Darkness podcast. And so she would say, Dad, turn him off. And of course,
Well, thank you.
you scared her, and she thought it was going to be paranormal. And there was one day I was sat there, and I just happened to click into a video. I can't remember what it was about, but it wasn't anything paranormal. And there's Darren's voice. She's like, "Dad, turn it off, turn it off." It's scary, scary. I said, "It's not a scary video at all, Denny. It's just it's a story video."
I should give her a call on her birthday someday. Good, happy birthday! Scare the crowd out of her. That's funny.
Well, and of course, you also did the introduction and outro for our professional podcast, which we still use, by the way. Thank you.
Oh, great.
And of course, she would hear that and have the same reaction. And I'm like, well, it's really not paranormal, Denny, but it might be really scary because it's very boring stuff.
That's a story of my life. Girls scared of me all my life. Never can get a date. That's just the way it works.
That's not true. We all know that you are well married and have a beautiful bride who supports you in all of these activities as well.
Yeah, I snowed her over enough to get her to say yes to marrying me.
You really go for it as well. I mean, when you were doing the video Weird Darkness, you went with the music and the imagery. You do the Halloween specials and the sort of play on Santa Claus and all of that sort of stuff. I mean, you really do go for it. So you must really have a great time doing this.
I have the best job in the world. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a rock star, and then I wanted to be a movie actor. Then I discovered radio, and radio really kind of gave me the creative outlet that I was looking for. The idea of being able to tell stories and everything. I loved using my voice to entertain people. And I think that's where it started. I wanted to be a rock star. I was using my voice to entertain people. If I wanted to be an actor, I was using my voice to entertain people, especially on the stage. So the radio thing just made sense. And then I discovered audio theater when I was in radio. And that was it for me. I wanted to be a voice actor. That was great. So that's what I do nowadays. And yes, I love throwing myself into those roles. I think that's the most exciting part for me. Being Spooky Santa, of course, is a lot of fun. Doing the Weird Darkness, the live scream, as we call it, every Halloween, where it's the only day during the year that I actually do the podcast live on video. And that takes a lot of work to put together, but it's always a lot of fun. But even in the regular episodes where I'll find a character and I'll kind of get into that character. I remember once even getting into it so much I started crying while I was voicing the character, because that character was so scared and so distressed in the situation. And I have never been able to cry on cue, ever. That's why I knew I'd never be a Hollywood actor. But suddenly now I'm doing a voice acting thing and the tears are pouring. So yeah, I really like stepping into those characters and really feeling what they're feeling. I think that's what makes it unique, I guess, for Weird Darkness, is I'm not just narrating the words. I'm actually trying to play those characters, which becomes a bit difficult when there are several characters in a story, but that's also half the fun of it. You get to create different voices for each character to make sure that they do sound separate, and switching from one that's terrified and the other that's evil. Trying to do that within a half second, that's sometimes a bit schizophrenic, but it's a lot of fun.
Challenging stuff, yeah.
Yes, definitely.
So the $6 million question is given that you narrate all of these scary stories about all of these paranormal and supernatural topics, have you had any experience of that yourself?
That's another question that I get a lot, and I really hate to answer it because the answer is mostly no. And people expect that I have a slew of stories to tell.
Yeah. And
I don't. The one incident that did happen to me is, and now my dad has had experiences, but me personally, the only one that happened to me was a sleep paralysis incident, which a lot of people don't even consider paranormal, but being in it and experiencing it, I have no doubt that there is a demonic presence there, that there is an influence there, just because it is such a feeling of pure evil that I'd never felt before and hope to never feel again. The sleep paralysis thing, if people aren't quite familiar with it, it's exactly what it sounds like. You wake up, but you are paralyzed. You cannot move anything. You're kind of still half asleep, which is why your body has not quite, because when you're asleep and you're doing it, like, you have to have paralysis. Otherwise, when you're dreaming, you're going to be running all over your room and hitting yourself or bruising yourself. So your body has to paralyze itself while you're dreaming in order to protect you more than anything else. But in sleep paralysis, you're waking up, but your body hasn't released the paralysis yet. So you are there, wide awake, looking around the room, and it seems like the only thing you can move are your eyes, because nothing else moves. You can't scream, you can't roll over, you can't, try and reach over to turn a light on, nothing. And so that right then and there, just by itself, is horrifying. It's truly scary. But in my situation, it was that, and then I had a dark, blacker than black presence. It was so black that you could actually feel infinity past it. It was that dark. I mean, I was already in a dark room. So for it to show up in that room, it had to be even blacker than black. Right. And I don't remember if it actually had eyes or if I'm just projecting that onto my memory, but it did feel like it was looming over me. And it was just malevolent the whole way. And the only thing that saved me or snapped me out of it, I guess, for lack of better words, is, again, I couldn't speak it out loud, but in my mind, I'm saying, Jesus, save me, Jesus, save me. And that's the only thing that, that seemed to snap me out of it. And right then and there, I was like, thank you, God, thank you. And that's never happened to me since. And I think, in fact, the reason that it even came on me is because this happened after I began Weird Darkness. I think that somehow, even though I did not intend to, I kind of invited it to me because of what I do. I warn people constantly, don't use the Ouija boards, don't do the spirit boards, don't do the seances or go to the psychics or anything, because you're opening yourself up to it. You might think that you're going to be talking to your grandmother, but you don't know. That could be something pretending to be your grandmother, and you really don't want to risk bringing that dark force into your life, because it's sure enough, it can attach to you, go and go with you wherever you go. So I think in some strange way, me telling the stories of people who have done that, I, in a way, kind of opened that door a bit. So
you've got to be careful. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have to be a bit more careful now about not only about what I read, but also how I approach it, and also just I hate to sound religious, but stay prayed up. When stepping into it.
I did a book. It didn't sell that well, actually, but I did a book on sleep paralysis, succubi, and incubi, and all of those kind of things. And it was prompted by having an experience just like you. I was on an overnight train to Germany. I thought, well, I won't fly. I'm sick to death of flying. And anyway, by the time you've waited the 3 hours at the airport and then took the 1 hour train ride at the other end, I may as well, take the train. Right. So I took the overnight train, and I had a very similar experience. And this thing, when I came out, I could still see it as a smoky haze that went up into the luggage rack and sat there. And I had a second one immediately. I tried to go back to sleep. I had a second experience, and after that, I couldn't sleep because this thing was still there. And my books are not always just straight ghost stories, but I try to make some sense out of what's going on. And I came to the conclusion that the idea that this is a feature of sleep paralysis, I think, is back to front. I think sleep paralysis is a feature of these malevolent beings that feed off of our fear and lust, and they use that to put us in a situation where they can feed off of our energy. And that was the point of the book. Was this is not something that happens when you have sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is what they use to create this fear, and in some instances, there's a sexual element to it. So there's lust involved,
right? With the succubus and incubus aspect of it. Yeah. I've never had that. Thank God. That would be terrifying.
Yeah.
I know guys think, oh, it'd be so much fun to have a demon.
No. Trust me.
No, you don't want that. No.
No, it's not fun.
There's nothing pleasurable or romantic about that in any way. Wow.
No,
It's
it's not
so
good.
it's strange that you had it twice, like right back to back. So
Yeah.
you understand that feeling of complete
Oh
evil,
yeah.
of
Oh
dread.
yeah. 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 Yeah.
There is a demonic influence in it. I
Yeah.
know science likes to try and explain it away by saying it's sleep paralysis and there's something in the brain that's
No,
causing
I
that.
think it's the other way around. I
Whatever.
think sleep.
Yeah.
I think that we live in a much more complicated reality than we're led to believe. I think that there are parallel realities right here and now. I mean, you've read a lot of stories about shadow people, and you've read
Oh
some
yeah.
of the stories I collected, and there are any number of shadow people stories where it's plainly obvious that the shadow person becomes aware of the human
Yeah.
and is frightened, almost as if this is a parallel overlapping universe, a vibrational, higher vibrational or a lower vibrational state, like wavelengths on a radio, tuning into different radio stations.
Right.
And sometimes when there's a storm or the atmospheric conditions are correct, you get a little bit of interference.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden you're seeing shadow people who are seeing you, and we're both scared of each other because we don't know what we've got. So, I've come to this conclusion that all of these phenomena are very, very real. And I think that that frequency goes up and down. So there's a very heavy frequency, and we would call that evil and demonic. But there's also a very light frequency that we would call angelic.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the third man type experience is a similar thing. It's where for a period of time, two parallel universes interact, and a higher being interacts in a kind way with humanity. So yeah, I mean that's where that. In fact, I hate to do it, but that's my latest book, Liminal People, and it's that's the topic. So this is the conclusion that I've come to, and I'm not the only one. I don't know if you've come across Anthony Peake's work.
I do not believe so. No.
Okay, well, he writes a lot about life after death, and comes at it from a quantum physics and a psychology and every aspect, and he's come to similar conclusions. Not many people have, I think. Now, you said that some people obviously are a bit surprised that you're a born-again Christian and that you find this interesting. To me, it's like, well, why wouldn't you? It is interesting. It's also fun. I think. I mean, there is a dangerous aspect to it, but I like driving, and there's a dangerous aspect to that as well, right?
Especially if you're behind the wheel with my mother-in-law. Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
I can say that because I know she doesn't listen to podcasts.
So, we covered it kind of. What do you say to people then that are offended by what you do?
I think they're trying to protect me, and I appreciate that. I mean, they're coming at me from caring hearts, and so I'm never angry about it. I try to explain to them that even the disciples believed in ghosts. There was the aspect where they were on the boat and they saw Jesus walking on the water, but they didn't recognize him as Jesus. They thought he was a ghost. And so even then they believed in ghosts. So that one aspect of it, I think, helps explain a little bit about how I can be into this. But there are moments where there are spirits in the Bible. There are people going to prophets and psychics in the Bible to try to get information about upcoming wars and stuff like that. And then there's the supernatural aspect of it. You have angels and demons. If you're a Christian, you believe in that anyway. So who's to say that ghosts or shadow people or whatever aren't part of the supernatural realm? They could be demons or they could be angels. The Bible even says that, we entertain angels unaware. So somebody could come up to you and help you, or you help them, and you have no idea whether or not that's a real person or not.
Yeah.
So I think the Bible is full of paranormal and supernatural. They see things in the sky. Nowadays we call them UFOs. Back then they were chariots on fire.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of it in the Bible that if you just kind of keep your eyes open, you're going to see the paranormal and strange. But people understandably are protective of themselves and others. They feel that you're not allowed to not even look into stuff that could be labeled evil, quote unquote. But the Bible talks about hell. I mean, that's about as evil as you can get. And yet you got to talk about it. Otherwise, what's the point of salvation? So I think that's probably why I'm okay with it. But it's sometimes it's not enough for people who are questioning. They just, and that's fine. I tell people, if you have an issue with it, if you don't feel like it's something that you should be listening to or investigating, then don't. God's going to use different things in different people's lives. Some people smoke marijuana, others don't. Maybe because they just know that they can't, or that it's illegal, or God could be telling them that's not for you. You have an addictive personality. You shouldn't be doing that. Some people have an issue with certain types of music. There's nothing wrong with music. Music itself is not bad or good. The lyrics itself might make it so, but music in general isn't.
Yeah.
I remember growing up and going to a church camp thing or whatever, and they said that any music with drums in it is of the devil. It's like, oh, come on. Seriously, because that brings out the sexual urges in you. So, okay, goodbye. I'm out of here. I'm going to go back to my car and listen to Huey Lewis and the News. So I think there are certain things that people shouldn't do if God tells them not to. And some people are going to be fine doing those things. I don't drink personally, but I've never been told by God not to. But there are others who feel that, yeah, they really feel that God's telling them not to drink anymore, or not to watch certain movies or listen to certain music or whatever. Every single person's going to be different. God knows what you can and cannot take, and what is good or is not good for you. I truly believe that God wants me in this position with what I'm doing, mainly because he has blessed it so much. So, and I give all of that to him, but I'm also helping people when it comes to the depression aspect, because I talk a lot about mental illness with depression in the podcast as well. And I'm also introducing people a bit in the end of each episode with a Bible verse. And I also got my Church of the Undead on the side. It's another podcast that I do, which is kind of related to Weird Darkness, but not really. But I think he's okay with where I am because I have an influence on others and could possibly bring them some encouragement, some truth, some lightness.
Well, I think you're right. I think you do have an influence, and your personality comes across loud and clear. And I don't think you need to do anything other than be you, because the Darren that I know is a really special and nice person who really is a Christian, as I would imagine one.
Oh, thank
so
you.
I think that is all you need to do. To be honest, I think people see it. Yeah,
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Are there any boundaries? Are there any stories you wouldn't do? Are there any topics you wouldn't cover in the paranormal realm?
Not so far. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm very careful not to endorse certain things. I'll tell the stories. I'll let people know what happened, but I won't come out to a point of saying you really ought to try this yourself, or here's how you can do it yourself. Like, I'm not going to do anything like that. So even though I'll tell stories about people using Ouija boards and what happened to them, in fact, many of them came from you on stuff like that, I will never get to the point of actually endorsing that type of thing. So when it comes to the paranormal realm, I really haven't come across anything yet that I would stray away from. There are certain things that I will stay away from in the podcast itself. If it's a really brutal description of sexual assault or something like that, then I feel like I don't need to go that direction. Right. I might either tone it down. I might take what the author wrote and kind of rewrite it to let people know what happened, but without being so graphic. Or I might just skip that story entirely, especially when it comes to children. There's a certain line in my spirit for some reason that just has such a hard time even relaying the information on stories like that. And there's one instance, only once, that I remember that I actually posted an episode and then thought better of it and took it down. And that was because it was brutal assault, sexual assault on children. And I remember narrating that episode thinking, man, this is gruesome. I don't know about this. But then again, I do have a warning at the beginning of my episodes saying it's not for sensitive people. So yeah, okay, maybe it's all right to do it. And then I thought better of it. I had that check in my spirit thinking, no, you really shouldn't release that. That's too dark. And now knowing after that I do have kids that listen to the podcast, I'm really glad that I made that decision.
Right.
So content like that, and I also try to avoid the F-bombs, and stuff like that when it comes to language, again, because I know that kids are listening. So I try to keep it PG-13 as best I can in the paranormal realm. That's really hard to do sometimes, especially when you're talking about true crime and stuff like that. It's really hard to keep it PG-13, but there are certain boundaries that I just don't want to cross.
How many episodes of Weird Darkness have you done?
Oh, goodness gracious. Oh my gosh. It's got to be, well, let's see, 3, 6, 9, probably 2000.
Yeah.
Something such as that. It's hard to tell because quite often I'll do a dark archive episode where I'll go back and reach into a past episode and post it on the weekends. And so I'll delete the one that was already posted from the podcast and re-upload it. So if you look at the podcast now, I think you'll see well over 1,000 episodes that you can listen to right now. And that'll slowly grow as I create new episodes. But because I've deleted so many, and after all these years doing this since October of 2015, yeah, I'd probably say it's probably close to 2,000.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all. And where do you get your material now?
I get it from a variety of locations. I go to a lot of different websites. The scroll on my bookmarks on my on my computer is just so stinking long. I also go to a lot of newsletters that I subscribe to, which clogs up my email, but that's the great way to get stuff. I've really enjoyed recently doing something called Fireside Frights, where once a month it's only stories that listeners of the podcast have sent in, their own true stories. And I'm getting more and more of those as the podcast grows. And once in a while, there's a topic that I want to have covered, and I just don't know exactly where to go about getting it. And I'll hire somebody, a friend of mine or something who has some great writing skills, and I'll have them do the research and write it. So the kind of a combination of all of that. I also have authors such as yourself that come to me and say, hey, well, this would be great for your podcast, which is kind of nice because I can actually promote that author. I can narrate a chapter of their book, something that could still work as a standalone story, but then tell my listeners, hey, if you want to hear more of this, you can go to G. Michael Vasey's website, and here's all of his books, and this is the book that it's from, and I'll include a link in the show description so people can get it. So there's a variety of different things that I do in order to get the stories, which I kind of need if I'm going to upload every single day. So yeah, it's a nonstop process.
And on the book narration, how many books have you narrated of this sort of genre?
You know what? I can tell you real quick. I can go to my website and let you know. If you go to weirddarkness.com and click on audiobooks, you should be able to see. I've done Edgar Allan Poe. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 78. Holy cow, I had no idea I'd done this many. So I'd say probably close to 50.
So you've narrated as many books as I've written.
And yet not all of them are yours.
No, why not?
Yeah, we need to talk about that. I think there's books that you've sent to me that I still need to narrate. So
that's correct, but you become a very busy man, so.
Oh, that's okay. But part of what I like to do is the audiobooks. I had a hard time for a long time with the pandemic, causing some health issues at the same time. But now that I'm actually getting healthy and getting back to normal, I'm actually jumping onto audiobooks again. So I was actually planning on contacting you saying, hey, I got these on my list over here. Do you still want those narrated?
I'll take a look. I'll let you know. Where I was going also was, haven't you started a publishing entity? Didn't you mention that to me in an email recently?
Yeah, and I didn't even offer it to you because you know what you're doing. So you don't even need me. but it's sort of an experiment. There were so many stories that were sent to me by authors who would like to be published someday, but they don't have enough for a novel. They just have a short story here or there. And some of them are just so talented, and I'm so impressed with them. I thought, is there something that I could do? So I contacted another author by the name of Scott Donnelly and said, hey, would you like to work together and maybe create a publishing division of Weird Darkness where we could publish some of these authors' stories? So right now it's just an experiment. I have about 3 authors that are guinea pigs for me right now. And we've just released the first book, which is Of a Mad Brain by Scott Donnelly, because that way we can use him as sort of the experiment. And if it works, we'll probably release a book every month or so, which means I'll be doing a lot of narration on the audiobooks for those as well.
Yeah.
I think the reason that we did it is some authors will get into a publishing company, but the publishing company won't do any promotion. They really don't do anything for the author after it gets published.
No.
Me, I've already got a built-in audience with Weird Darkness. I get over 1.5 million downloads a month. So it's easy for me to say, hey, there's this brand new book from Weird Darkness Publishing, which the brand helps people to, put some weight behind it. And you can check it out. The narration is by me as well. And I can put that in every single episode that I post for an entire month or so. And I would think that's going to be more than what the other book publishers are doing. And I really don't want much out of it. I want enough to cover my costs. I do have some costs regarding artwork and everything else for the books, and just enough to make it worth my time. I want the bulk of it to go to the author, which I think is also kind of reverse of the publishing companies. So I'm not really into the publishing aspect for the money. It's more, I want to promote the authors and kind of get their name out there.
It's content for you too, right?
Oh, it is, definitely. But I'm not going to use all the books for the podcast either. Like as an example, if you, G. Michael Vasey, were one of my authors, I would take a chapter of the book and say, new from Weird Darkness Publishing from G. Michael Vasey. And then I would just share a chapter and then say, here's where you can get the rest of the book. But the rest of the month, I'd still have like a 30 or 60 second promo saying, this book is available, go check it out. So it's just pushing it into people, let them know it's available and that they should see it. And I just don't see other publishing companies doing that all that much.
No, my experience with publishing companies has not been, it's stacked against you. They put it out, they don't do any promotion, they expect you to do all the legwork. And so I thought, well, may as well do it myself. And so I do.
Yeah, and that's really what we're doing. We're self-publishing. We are not an actual publishing company where we're going to get books in bookstores or anything like that. I could have gone that way, but it would have cost me a fortune.
Of course.
But this is just for those who really don't know about self-publishing, and we're just doing it for you and giving you, your cut of the profits once it's out there. And then, if 3 months down the line you feel like you don't want to do it, you just tell me and we cut the contract. Like I said, I'm not really into it for the money. I just want to promote the authors.
Yeah.
So.
And books are funny things. I mean, just as an example, I put out a book about just over a year ago called Watch from the Shadows. And that thing, for about the first 2 months, it barely moved. And then slowly but surely it started to sell. So I haven't done anything paranormal until this Liminal People book, which has been out about a month. And now Watched from the Shadows is selling 60 copies a month and rising in the top 20 of one of the categories on Amazon.
Nice.
And the new book hasn't sold a handful. But I can't quite figure out. I think there's a bit of luck to this, I mean, I think I do have a brand as well, which helps a little bit because I've done so many books. But it is weird. Some books just go and take off, and others just die a death. Yeah, and there doesn't seem to be any pattern to it, or any rhyme or reason. It just happens.
Yeah, the audiobooks that I've narrated, there are some that are my favorites, and I think, ooh, this is going to be great. People are going to love this, and they don't sell. They're just dead. And the ones that I've narrated that I don't even promote on my site because I think they're that awful, they'll get sales. So I can only assume that the authors of those are doing their own promotion and doing it well. But like you promote your own books, and yet sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. You're right. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason.
I mean, if you think of something like Chilling Tales of Black-Eyed Kids, which I think you narrated, right?
Oh, yes.
That sells really well, right? I mean, it continues to sell really well in all formats, audio included. Whereas something like The Last Observer, which I actually think
loved narrating that.
You loved narrating that, hasn't done well at all. And I don't understand why, because I think
that's a shame. That's a shame, because I mean, that was a thrill ride the whole way through. Yeah. I really enjoyed that one, and I do have that one on my audiobooks page because I hope people will grab it. Yeah, it's one of the few books that you've written that is fictional, but it was so vivid. It was, I mean, I could really see all the characters in that. I really loved it.
I mean, if it sold 500 in all copies, I'd be very surprised.
Yeah,
it's a shame because I got a kick out of writing that one. Anyway, we're not talking about me. We're talking about you. Just as an example of how strange book publishing is.
We're just two buddies talking. It doesn't matter. So I'm gonna have to tell my audience though about Last Observer again. I'm gonna have to create another promo for that and let them know, because that really it's a shame.
And you did such a good job narrating it. I mean, all the different accents and characters came through real clear, and I feel so bad because how many has it sold? Maybe 25 copies or something.
I don't know. I'd have to go look at the stats, but I get monthly stats and numbers on all the books that I've done, and I don't remember The Last Observer, selling hardly anything the last few months. Yeah,
terrible shame.
Yes, it is. I agree. It's a terrible shame.
So what else is in the future, paranormal wise, for Darren, and Weird Darkness or related topics?
Not much. I'm continuing with what I'm currently doing. I don't think the radio show that I do Sunday nights is going to continue. I'm not really seeing much of an impact on that. I was really hoping that would actually bring more listeners, or at least grow the number of stations. But it's been now a year, and we've been stuck at the same number of stations. So I don't mind doing it, but it just doesn't seem to be paying off. So I'll probably reclaim that time for myself and start doing other things. And now that the pandemic is finally over, I can go out and go to expos and conventions and stuff like that, which I had my first experience with that about a month ago after the pandemic. And I just fell in love with all the people that came up and said hello, whether they were already weirdos or not, as my listeners like to call themselves. Some people said, "Hey, we heard about this from your podcast. Great to see you." Others are coming up saying, "Ooh, you're a podcaster? That's right down my alley. Yeah, I'll check it out." And I'm that is going to be so much more effective than the radio show. So I'm buying. It's amazing that we're actually having this conversation today. Just yesterday, I put down a down payment on a new vehicle. We're going to get it vinyl wrapped. It'll be the Weird Darkness Ford Explorer. And we're going to be traveling the country in that thing. It's going to be a giant billboard on 4 wheels, and we're just going to drive everywhere to have tables at expos and conferences and Comic-Cons and fan conventions and all that other stuff. And I'm just going to be there at my table giving away free stuff. I know all the vendors usually have something to sell, but I don't sell it. I give away the keychains and the magnets and the pens and the phone stands and stuff like that, just to promote the podcast. And I've actually seen a bit of an increase in listenership just from doing that. And I've only had 2 events in the last 2 months. So I should be doing that about once a month now, sometimes twice. So I'll be on the road a lot, which my wife will like because she doesn't have to see me anymore. And I'm just kidding. So sometimes she'll come with me because she makes a great roadie. But yeah, that's the next big thing for us. We're going to be getting that on the road, and starting in July, I guess we'll be taking it out.
Good. And if you had a favorite story that you've narrated, what would it be?
Oh, The Last Observer, obviously.
Yeah, fine. Thank you very much. But I mean, a creepy story, a short creepy story. What would be the favorite, most scary, or whatever, the one you most enjoyed? It's probably difficult to pin down amongst all the thousands.
It is. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different stories. I'm not pulling your leg, but doing the book, The Black-Eyed Kids that you wrote, that's still one of my favorites. I know that's not a short story that you're asking about, but that's the one that comes to mind. Something about the Black-Eyed Kids is just so stinking creepy.
Oh yeah.
And I have people asking about Black-Eyed Kids so often. They don't have their own experiences necessarily, but they want to know. And as soon as they know about it, they're scared stiff about it possibly happening to them.
Yeah.
I think that's probably my favorite so far.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing those stories, not just yours, because, I narrated the book, but now I'll come across stories once in a while about Black-Eyed Kids. And that always, of course, takes me back to your book. But those kinds of stories, I think, are the creepiest, even though I've never had that encounter and I really don't know what it would be like. It just seems so creepy.
No, as I start that book off with that one story that someone submitted to myhauntedlife2.com, and I said it's the only time in all of the time I was collecting stories, still collecting stories, that I sat there and I thought to myself, oh my goodness me, this is scary.
Yeah.
This is really, the hairs on the back of my neck. This is creepy. So yeah, I agree with you.
Was it your book that had the story about somebody that did let the Black-Eyed Kid in their house?
Yes.
That one right there is because everybody asks, what happens if you do let them in your car, or if you do let them in your house? What happens then? Well, nobody knows because nobody does it. Well, you had a story that actually did.
I did. Yeah, I did.
And if I remember correctly, the husband had health problems after that happened.
The pets all died.
Yeah. So people, if you're listening, you need to go look for his Black-Eyed Kids books and read that for yourself, because it's terrifying stuff. So do not let them in your house. We'll just put it that way.
Well, Darren, if people, I'm hoping people want to listen to Weird Darkness and listen to some of the audiobooks, where will they find information about you and your activities?
I try to put it all in one place to make it easy. Just go to weirddarkness.com and you can find the audiobooks there, the other podcasts that I do. You can find, there's the Hope in the Darkness page for people who are struggling with anxiety and depression. I put it all in one place to make it easy. But if you're just looking for the podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether it's YouTube or Stitcher or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever, just look for Weird Darkness. And it should be the first thing that pops up. It's a little hand coming out of the ground with a black background. So pretty easy to identify. But if you can't find it, just go to the website, weirddarkness.com.
Darren, thanks a lot. It's been great talking to you.
Really great talking to you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks to Darren Marler for being my guest on this episode. Thank you for listening. We hope that you enjoyed this podcast. And if you did, please do share, like, that kind of thing. And if you want to know more about Darren, if you want to follow his excellent Weird Darkness podcast, or look over the audiobooks that he's narrated, or anything else that he does, please look at the notes underneath this podcast for more details on how to find him. This has been another episode of The Magical World of G. Michael Vasey. See you soon. Thanks.